Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Asia Farm Animal Day and our very important session on the cultural components of activism. Understanding the nuances of culture allows us to design interventions that are relevant, respectful, and impactful. Today, we have an incredible lineup of speakers covering a variety of topics with us. We hear about how do DEI principles play out in the Global South, what effective animal advocacy looks like in Asia, and why culturally sensitive approaches are essential when we're working in the Global South. We particularly focus on some countries, but really we'll cover Philippines, Pakistan, Taiwan, Latin America, and much more. Let us use this opportunity to broaden our perspectives and rethink how we approach activism in unique cultural contexts. With that, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Costa. Thai is the People and Operations Director at Synergia Animal, with over a decade of experience in DEIJ and human resources. Welcome, Thai.
Can I move this a little? Is that okay? Okay. Perfect. Hi. I hope you all can hear me. So thank you so much, everyone, for having me in this amazing event. I am very proud. Thank you. Okay. So I would like to present myself. My name is Costa. I use the pronouns she and her. I am a Brazilian from the city of São Paulo, that if you've never been, this is a city that is almost as busy as Hanoi. I am a proud lesbian, married for almost 17 years. I'm also a person on the spectrum. And I am the People and Operations Director at Synergia Animal. I've been working with diversity, equity, and inclusion for the past decade, and in the private and nonprofit sectors, and lately focusing, of course, in animal advocacy. And being someone that belongs to many minoritized groups myself, DI is not only my work, it is also deeply personal and a passion to me. So today I want to talk about DI in the Global South. But before we enter to that, I would like just some reminders of definitions if you're not familiar with them. So first, Global South is a social, economic, and political term that refers to low or middle income countries with shared challenges like colonial legacies and inequality like most Latin America and Asian countries. DI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And minoritized groups refer to people who are in a non-dominant position in society, often facing underrepresentation and marginalization. So now that we got that cover, let me just say how happy I am to see the amount of people watching this presentation among the other amazing presentations that I'm having today. But I wanted to understand who I am talking to. So please raise your hand if you are on the Human Resources Department. Okay, not many people. This is actually great because the first big mistake that organizations make about becoming an inclusive environment is thinking that this is a human resources or recruitment issue only. Being an inclusive organization is everyone's responsibility, especially those in positions of power and decision-making. So diversity needs to be discussed by everyone. We are all constantly in the process of deconstruction, so I need to understand my role, my influence to bring new actions and directions through disconstructed biases. And we should not just sit and think, oh, the organization should do this, the organization should do that. We all need to look for continuous learning, for continuous ideas of what we can do, and how the team itself is creating this safe environment, and especially how leaders are creating this environment. Now I have another question. This one you don't need to answer out loud. But when I say picture a diverse team or a diverse workspace, what comes to your mind? What does that mean to you? And I ask that because diversity can mean many things. especially if you consider that no person is like the other. So at Synergia Animal, for example, we are a big team of people from different continents, backgrounds, and work and life experiences. And it is well known that in the job market, we have a big diversity gap between men and women, especially in leadership positions. But still, at Synergia Animal, 91% of our leadership identify as women. So, of course, if we focus on hiring more only women, we wouldn't enhance Synergia Animal's diversity, right? So what would enhance the diversity in the organization where you work? So the idea is that I have an ask that today I want you to all create a safe space for me to tell you some actions and lessons learned while working with DEI in an international global Southwest NGO, which is a very specific environment. So first, when I joined the organization in 2021, we took the opportunity that the organization was growing really quickly to focus on hiring people from minoritized groups by prioritizing these groups. So in the past, we had positions open for almost a year, and even when we wanted help from recruitment consultancies. And to be very honest, many consultancies declined working with us because it was too difficult to close our positions. The difficulty that they found was finding people that had the skills, experiences, were vegan, spoke English as a second language, and were part of these minoritized groups. And of course, with that, we had to face the reality that the vegan movement, it is still a very small movement, that usually it is among the higher privileged classes and people. So I wanted also to explain why, but we do have many people, right, in minoritized groups. So why wouldn't they apply to our positions? So LinkedIn research found out that men apply to positions where they meet 60% of the requirements. In comparison, women only apply to positions when they meet 100% of these requirements. And when we consider people who have been overlooked by society for a long time, even if they meet 100% of the requirements, sometimes they still don't apply due to fear of being rejected or discriminated once they join the organization. So we needed to find a way to show that our organization was a safe space where people could thrive. So since 2021, we have worked on all our vacancies with affirmative policies. So we welcome and value people from all minoritized groups. Another initiative that we did was starting a project that is the Diversity Talent Bank Animal Welfare. That is a talent bank where we collect people's resumes and data to share among 9 other organizations besides Synergia Animal, and another one that is joining us as we speak. So this way, we could have people that are interested in Synergia Animal, they might be interested in working with other organizations too. And this way, we could hire more and more people. And this initiative was started by Synergia and now has attracted hundreds of passionate candidates willing to join us. Also, when we consider that all the bias that minoritized groups suffer in the world, many people don't have the opportunity to learn a second language, to attend college, or even have the work experience that they would like and deserve to. So Synergia Animal asks for candidates how they self-identify and whether they belong to any minoritized groups. So we do not follow the blind recruitment initiative, because in the end, blind recruitment is not actually blind. You can often see who's the person behind the resume. So when you think, like you get a sense about their educations, their experiences, so you kind of know who that person is. So Synergia Animal asks, and then we make the choice like deliberately. So it is something that we do consciously. Also, in many cases, again, individuals who have faced more complex situations and fewer privileges often carry valuable knowledge and experiences that can be useful for many positions at any organization. But sometimes these are not like traditional work experiences or education in high prestigious institutions. So at Synergia Animal, we look for people with growth potential, and we assess candidates' learning agility based on a conifery theory of potential. And this also makes us even easier to understand who that person could become at Synergia if we give them the chance to develop. Another thing is that we decided not hiring only vegans. So some specific roles at Synergia require people to be vegan, but not all. And many of our allies, donors, social media followers are not vegan, so why not bringing these people and showing them that being vegan is the best choice possible. So first lesson learned. Yeah. So the first lesson learned is that we were dedicating considerable efforts in hiring. But after a while, we understood that we also needed to develop more people. So we started doing some actions. So for example, the training and development program, that is a yearly allowance that our team can use to develop themselves in whatever area that they want to. And this also made possible for us to hire people that were not fluent in English, but they could become fluent after entering Synergia Animal. And English is the standard language that we use, as we are a very international organization. So we also focus on literacy. So we have a gender-neutral language guideline that we use as the pattern for every communication that we have, like social media, internal messages. Also, we have a monthly DEI pills created by external journalists. And also, we host an annual DEI workshops or talks with guest speakers to deepen our knowledge. I need to go faster. Also, as part of our onboarding process, we offer a Respect in the Workplace training that show the team how they should respond and report any disrespect among colleagues or external parties. And this training is repeated yearly. And another lesson learned is that we have always focused on having a Respect in the Workplace policy that met the best standards in animal advocacy. But even so, we are always improving it. We're always looking at it. So nowadays, our policy covers any situation where someone might feel disrespected. Even minor unintentional mistakes, we tell people and we encourage people to report them. And of course, our corrective actions are consistent and show our commitment to prevent incidents and fostering a respectful work environment. And we have DEI as an intrinsic part of our culture. So being part of building a more inclusive movement is part of Synergia's strategic plan. So to support this commitment, we focus on several key areas that foster this inclusivity. So first, it is part of our mission. It is the third pillar of our theory of change, where we state that we want to make the movement a more inclusive one. Then it is part of our culture pillars. So every action, goal, activity aligns with our strategic plan and our culture pillars. And through the synergy pillar, we emphasize our commitment to fostering a diverse work environment and team. So these values are also central to our evaluation process. So in our feedback moments, we talk about the importance of being inclusive. Another thing is that a safe workspace is one that the same rules are made clear and they are the same for all. So it is important to have standardized and comprehensive policies that ensure inclusion and development for everyone. So having procedures and processes in place make people feel safe that the same thing that applies to one applies to all. The workspace needs to be inclusive, where everyone is properly integrated and they can work efficiently and comfortably. And also our team members are always encouraged to adhere to these procedures so we can still maintain this fair workplace. Managing people from minoritized group is managing people. So this shouldn't be something that is scary for leaders or that brings stress. So at Synergy Animal, we also focus a lot on developing our leaders so they can create a psychological safety among the teams, so people feel empowered to have open and honest conversations and also feel comfortable in making requests or speaking up. We also conduct an annual internal census to assess the representation of minoritized groups within the organization, and we use that to guide us in the process of developing future strategies or initiatives. And we have such a big, diverse team at Synergy Animal that we need to be very aware of each other. So we pay attention to people's time zones. We do not send messages to them when they are not working. We are careful with how we communicate and we approach one another. And also we do some cross-cultural training. I am in my last slide, sorry. So the last lesson learned, that is the most important one, is that there is always more than we can do. Always more than we can learn, always more than we can change. So both Synergia Animal as an organization and me personally will not stop striving to make a difference and create more opportunities for a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive movement. I hope you are too. And this, I just want to say that if you want to ask questions in the end, this is a safe space. Just be kind to one another. Let's take this as a learning opportunity. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Thai, for that really interesting presentation. I especially loved how you spoke that DEIJ is a part of our strategy. It is our culture. It's not just something we do on the side. We now have with us two amazing speakers again. We have with us Roxie Chia, who is the Taiwan coordinator for Animals Alliance Asia, who's an active member of Taiwan's animal justice, as well as other movements with experience in creating legislative changes. Joining her is Dr. Steph Dela Cruz, who is the Philippine coordinator at Animals Alliance Asia and a dedicated vegan advocate, recognized for her participation in women's rights, healthcare justice, as well as being the proud guardian of 3 spoiled cats. I will give the mic over to you guys.
Okay, let me just take a second to familiarize myself with this. Okay. Thank you, Shweta, for the wonderful introduction. For speakers like me who have many sensory issues, such as strobe lights, spotlights, sound, it's a relief that the wonderful organizers of AFAD gave us accommodations based on our tolerance to flash photography, which I see now, and even the font size on the screens that we read. They know that what works for one speaker doesn't necessarily work for the others. And while that's true for speakers, it's also true for countries and communities. So, what works in Asia? Let's explore together necessity of culturally informed interventions. True or false? Going vegan is something even poor people can do. So I want to see what you think about this. If you think it's true, I want to see a raise of hands. Again, going vegan is something even poor people can do. A raise of hands if you think this is true? All right. Thank you. Now, let's see who thinks it's false. I want to see as well. Who thinks this isn't true? I see fewer hands. Okay. So when I became so broke during the first few years of COVID, and this is disgusting, but bear with me, I would recook spoiled rice so that I could save money. Yeah, it's a horrible way to live, isn't it? But it's okay. I knew that I had resources waiting for me. I just had to hold on a little bit longer. And maybe you've experienced being broke as well. And maybe you already know that being broke and being poor are two different things. So allow me to introduce to you a Filipino word, which is mahirap. Can you say it with me? Mahirap. Oh, very good. You should go to the Philippines. I think you'll do very well there. So it has two meanings. It means difficult and poor. And when you have just one word that means the same for both difficulty and poverty, it reveals how most of our hardships as a people come from poverty. So when we tell a poor Filipino that they can become vegan, it carries the burden of cultural context. We might be ignoring 300 years of colonization that has taken away the access to the many vegetables and fruits that the Philippines has. When our very own crop farmers are being killed so that their land can be grabbed from them by more powerful people, we are ignoring the history that has shaped current food systems of our nation, which might make it that much harder for a poor Filipino to go vegan.
I suppose, okay, it's working. So yeah, true or false, this is the other one. It is important to have your own local term for veganism. So if you agree with this, please raise your hands. Okay, so that's a lot of you guys. So yeah, the reason why I asked this is in Taiwan, there's actually no term for veganism. And so every Lunar New Year, my aunties and uncles, they will always just like ask me, why do you have a Su diet? Because I don't consume any animal products. And I always try to explain like, I'm a vegan, I'm not someone with a Su diet. But this question just keeps getting asked every year. So in Taiwan, if you try to tell someone that you're a vegan person, it's very likely that most people would think that you have a Su diet. So for those who don't know, a Su diet is a kind of religious restrictive diet that is also known as Buddhist vegetarianism. And because Su in Taiwan is usually used as a surrogate word for veganism, so this could actually be challenging for those who are working on the ground on vegan advocacy. And it can create potential barriers, which we should totally acknowledge if we want to implement effective interventions in places that share similar cultural backgrounds.
So I'm grateful that today we bring to light the importance of cultural issues in our work. And I know some of you are thinking, are these culturally relevant interventions really necessary? Do they really work? So let's figure it out together and get to know each other. Again, with a raise of hands, who here work for international organizations? Can I see? All right, thank you. Who here work for grassroots organizations in their own countries? Okay. And who here are not working for any organization? Fewer than the other people. Okay, thank you. So now I want you to think about the important work that you do, whether you're from an international organization, a grassroots organization, if you're working alone. Think about the wonderful changes that you try to achieve and think of these challenges that you've encountered. Do you think any of these challenges are brought about by cultural nuances and cultural differences?
So Animal Alliance Asia has seen the impact of local leadership, which is why all coordinators in our organization come from the countries we represent. So for example, I as Taiwan coordinator, I come from Taiwan, and Steph, as Philippine coordinators, come from the Philippines. And for our regranting program, we give funding to locals who lead their own initiatives. And this first how addresses many cultural barriers to new interventions. We live in the communities we serve, so we are invested in finding solutions to the problems we can work on with local communities.
Sorry. So let me tell you a little bit about our Philippine program. We chose to collaborate with small-scale eateries instead of fast food chains. It would have made more sense to choose fast food chains because they're bigger, right? They're like nationwide, and everybody knows those names. But what seems more impactful at first glance might not be. According to the Consumer Insights by Good Food Institute and the Good Growth, titled Decoding Demand, only 19%. Again, that's 19% of Filipino respondents eat at those fast food chains, those bigger names, those bigger restaurants, while up to 40%, 40, eat often in canteen-type restaurants or the small eateries. And when it comes to changing menu items, restaurant chains require multi-level management decision-making, while the local eateries are easier to work with and are quicker to decide. Because of these perspectives that we've applied to our strategies, we saw a lot of good results. Our participants were supposed to take several months to add plant-based menu items to local eateries. But within just 2 weeks, 3 eateries have already agreed to adding plant-based items to their menus. Yeah, thank you. That's the hard work of the fellows on the ground, the locals, who know to interact with their communities. It would have taken more time, not to mention greater difficulty, for the program participants to negotiate with restaurant chains that need to consult higher management to change their standard menu items. So now I want you to think of the current interventions that you have in your countries and in your organizations. What perspectives can we learn from the local advocates? How do the perspectives of the communities we work with help us achieve the results that we want?
So now we all get the importance of understanding our target audience in different countries. But what may be lacking is the effort in understanding the less researched audiences, the young students, the university activists, the crop farmers, and so on, because a lot of the time they may not be seen as impactful target audiences. So we connect with the members of these less researched audiences, we learn from them, we collaborate with them, and these types of interventions reflect respect for the communities we work with, and it invites the sharing of unique perspectives that then lead to profound and long-term changes. For instance, so the Taiwan Fellowship Program of AAA targets at university students, as you can see. In Taiwan, our fellowship program provides university animal or vegan advocates with tools they need to change their university's food system. But because AAA Taiwan team members, none of us is a university student. So we identify the pre-existing leaders from universities who actually live in the ecosystem. Why university students, you might be curious, because in Taiwan there are several pre-existing animal and vegan advocacy student clubs, but the lack of strategic tools, sustainability, and collaboration stop them from getting the attention and support that they deserve. And one important benefit specifically to this program is that it empowers the fellows to initiate their own campaigns within their campuses to influence the audience they're most familiar with.
In our Philippine program, some of our participants had to help local eateries veganize menu items, as I've described. But one viand can have different ingredients and flavors depending on the region, which is why it was important for the program participants to belong to the region where they choose eateries to work with, so that the recipes honor the flavors familiar to their communities. Speaking of honoring things, when working with local advocates when we're working with local advocates, one of our responsibilities would be including striking a balance between sharing wisdom and being careful not to exploit that wisdom. In other words, We have to honor that wisdom that they willingly share with us. And that also means avoiding tokenization. We need to be truly inclusive, which is what Tai has been talking about in our work if we want to build a trusting and lasting relationship with the people we work with. For us to find out what works in Asia, we have to get to know who works in Asia.
So my name is Roxie Chia. I'm Animal Alliance Asia's Taiwan coordinator. And as coordinators, we develop fellowship programs informed by the cultures of our different countries. And these fellowship models focus on local advocate development through mentorship and mobilization so that we can come up with interventions that actually works.
And I'm Stefanie Cruz. I'm AAA's Philippine coordinator. In our Philippine Fellowship program that I've been describing in the past few slides, vegan food entrepreneurs are provided mentorship so that they can collaborate with crop farmers and eateries in offering plant-based food to the masses, so to everybody in the country. This helps empower vegan food businesses struggling in this economy while also addressing the urgent needs of our people, including the crop farmers who are integral if we want a vegan food system.
Our other amazing country coordinators of Animal Alliance Asia, they're everywhere at the moment, have also developed their own amazing programs specifically to their own countries. So I want to invite everyone to scan the code and then to go on our website to also look at their amazing work.
So on behalf of AAA, we would like to thank AFAD, and we would like to thank AVA and AVA and AFA. Where are they? Are they here in the room right now? Thank you to AFA, and AFA, oh my goodness, my English, for giving us this opportunity to talk about something that is really close to our hearts, something that could hopefully lead to better outcomes in Asia. We appreciate the trust that you've given us. And we would also, of course, like to thank everybody in this room. There are people standing over there. We cannot fit into one room. Thank you for giving us your time. Please find us on social media and don't hesitate to contact us. And we also have a booth outside. There's free food. I know that everybody wants that. And we also have free stickers. And we will be happy to talk to you about how we do our work, all the things that we do. We would love to share what we've learned on the ground because of the locals that we work with. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. Another round of applause for Animals Alliance Asia and their amazing in-depth presentation on culture. Last but not the least, sorry, I'm going to go back. Please use the Whova app to add questions. We've already seen some interesting questions come up, and keep adding them. I'm so happy to see the people in this room. It represents the urgency and the need of this conversation, so thank you everyone for coming in. Last but not the least, we have with us Davina Go, who is a performer and one of the pioneering plant-based lifestyle advocates in Malaysia. So over to you, and please use Whova. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta, for the kind introduction. And thank you guys so much for standing and sitting on the floor. It means so much to us. I wish we could offer more space to you guys. And also, if you read my description of what I'm going to present, you may have noticed that I was supposed to do a workshop, but that was my application for the speech. I didn't know I was only going to be given 15 minutes. So hopefully in a future presentation, I'd be given much more time for us to have fun together. So this is me. I'm Davina DeVegan. This is my online persona. And this is what I do on the ground as a plant-based lifestyle advocate for the past 8 years in Malaysia. I've done food workshops, food demos, presentations. Anybody who wants to hear about what it's like to be a vegan in Malaysia, I will just let them have it. So this is my gateway into becoming plant-based eventually, which I had no idea. You know, no vegan knows that they're going to eventually become vegan, right? So this is my gateway. This was a volunteer demonstration for PETA in the middle of the street in downtown Kuala Lumpur, dressed as a fish, holding a sign that says, try to relate to who is on your plate, go vegetarian. At that time, I was a pescatarian. And it made no sense for me to do this. I didn't know what to expect when I showed up. So when I was dressed as a fish, telling people not to eat fish, I went back home and I'm like, this does not make sense. I'm gonna go vegetarian today. So that's my vegetarian anniversary. And my mistake was then projecting my common sense onto everyone else, hence the birth of Davina, the passive-aggressive, judgmental vegetarian. So I went on rampages on Facebook. Do you remember notes on Facebook? I don't know why they got rid of it. But anyway, so I was not a nice person to hang out with because people could just read that I was judging them at meal times. At some point, I almost got ostracized by my family. I had to make a phone call to my grandmother saying, I'm sorry I gave everyone crap for eating shark fin soup over Chinese New Year. At some point, I just got really fed up of being angry and of other people being angry with me, so that by the time I went vegan in the year 2016, I changed my outlook and approach. I created a Facebook page, Davina the Vegan, and it was all light, fluffy stuff, nothing but recipes, no judgment. And when I picked up more traction, I developed a website and then imported all my recipes there because I thought to myself, well, if Malaysia is a food-centric country, if I give them ways to make food, people will go vegan, right? Oh, silly Davina. Silly, naive, vegan Davina. So the most common comment I got on my website was, will you make this for me? I will pay you for it. Sir, ma'am, I spent 3 months developing my recipe for ice cream and you still want me to make it for you? Oh man, I thought to myself, Malaysians are a lazy bunch. So I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I do? Okay, I will talk about the environment. The Amazon is on fire because of our diet. We need to reduce our meat consumption and go plant-based today. And I thought that worked because Malaysians sitting in the room watching this presentation and these slides would just shake their head and go, so bad, so bad. And then during lunch break, they would go out and pile up their plates with beef. And I'm like, why? Why? This survey done nationally by the Monash University reveals that even though Malaysians are alarmed, mostly, and concerned, mostly, can you guys see over here? Even though Malaysians are alarmed and concerned, 45% of Malaysians will not do anything because no one else is doing anything. And 9% of Malaysians don't believe that we can do anything about climate change at all. So I thought to myself, oh my gosh, so Malaysians are not only lazy, they also don't have a spine. We are a piece of work. So how am I going to get them to talk? How am I going to get them to eat for the planet when they don't even think about the small things like managing the waste generation? We are a huge proponent of food delivery apps. And 62% of us who are heavy users are married with children, and they use food delivery apps a lot because they say that they do not have time to cook at home. And what do they order? They order junk. So I thought to myself, well, I only order these things when I'm stressed. So what is the work environment like in Malaysia? So I started monitoring the headlines, and I noticed that it's not really good over in Malaysia. We are the 3rd most overworked city in the world after Dubai and Hong Kong. In terms of work-life balance, we have one of the worst. We are the 2nd worst after Nigeria. So yeah, work-life ain't that great. And that doesn't even mention the time we spend in traffic. We have some of the worst traffic in Southeast Asia, which robs us of whatever little time we have for leisure if we get any time at all. Helping me to connect the dots is this study conducted by the Kazana Research Institute, which does research on social issues that are very that seemed quite pertinent to Malaysia, and using that research to propose policies that would improve our well-being. So this study on food, environment, and nutritional inequalities brought up the term time poverty and how our work and life balance robs us. So we are poor with time, which leads to poor food choices and sedentary lifestyle. And people who are time poor make poor food choices because we don't have the time, attention, and effort we could afford to make better life and food choices. And this is what really struck me in this study, that when fresh foods like vegetables and fruits are cheap, because we don't have the capacity to make meals from scratch at home, we will still choose processed, ready-to-eat options instead. So I realized it's not that Malaysians are lazy. It's not that they don't have a spine. It's just that they don't have the capacity, emotionally, mentally, physically, to even make better choices for themselves. So what does these lead to? It leads to unhealthy Malaysians. 1 in 6 of us have diabetes. 1 in 3 of us have high blood pressure. 1 in 3 of us have high cholesterol. And almost all of us don't eat enough fresh fruits and vegetables. And for almost 10 years running, we are the fattest country in Southeast Asia. Over half of us are overweight or obese. And this is all pressing to me. These are all very concerning issues to me. But out of all of these socioeconomic factors that have since colored my advocacy outreach, there is one cultural component which I missed until recently, and that completely changed my approach in how I do my advocacy. And it started with a simple observation I made in my own family. My mother fits the typical profile of an unhealthy Malaysian. She has high blood pressure, she has diabetes, she has high blood cholesterol, she's slightly overweight. But even though she has the model daughter to show her every way to go plant-based, to change her life around in terms of health, she has not lifted a finger to try it out for a single day on her own. On the flip side, my ex-husband from Denmark was introduced by me the plant-based, health-centric documentary called Forks Over Knives. He watched that, he went plant-based overnight. And then he showed it to his mother, and then she went plant-based overnight. And then he showed it to his brother, he went plant-based overnight. I was wondering, what is going on with a huge disparity in attitudes and behavior switch? So I articulated my thoughts on Google and found out, I don't know if I'm the person in the room who says, did you watch Titanic? Did you know that the ship sunk? I feel like this right now. I don't know if I'm the last person in the room to discover the cultural dimensions theory by this Dutch social psychologist called Geert Hofstede. So this is a multidimensional framework that helps us understand why cultures differ across the globe based on the fundamental values we uphold in each country. So this is a map. This is a map globally of what it's like to be collectivist versus individualist according to scales. So the lower you are on the scale of 1 to 100, the more collectivist you are, and the higher your score, the more individualist you are. So Denmark up here has a score of 74, one of the most individualist countries in the world, whereas Malaysia, with a score of 26, is more collectivist. What's the difference between these two cultures? So individualist cultures, they prioritize personal goal pursuit and autonomy, independence, and they put individual over the group, like Danish people. Collectivist cultures like Malaysia, they view the self as overlapping and interconnected with others. They value interdependence, and they put group over individual. What does this look like in a family setting in Malaysia? Cooperation, obedience, harmonizing. Don't speak back to your elders. In fact, don't speak back at all. Do whatever it takes to maintain the peace, because every single thing we do ripples right across the family, right down to our extended family members. And this is what made me realize this is why it took me 16 years to go vegan, because I was trapped in this. And this is why my mother, who lives with my sister, who cooks for her, is finding it so difficult to make any kind of lifestyle change because she's trapped in this too. So what I learned and deduced now is that urban Malaysia has an issue. And it's nothing to do with laziness or lacking initiative. So our toxic work culture makes us sick. Our toxic food culture keeps us sick. And collectivist culture, despite its many advantages, perpetuates attitude and behavior paralysis. And it traps us in lifestyle patterns that do not serve us. So I went back to the drawing board and I changed my approach in advocacy. It is now non-confrontational. I don't talk about the animals, the planet, our health. I talk about food, 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 food. It's all community and family-oriented. I utilize the words plant-based and healthy because vegan is a little bit extreme for collectivist minds. And I focus on time-efficient recipes, easy as possible, and meeting people where they are, which is, if they're only eating ready-to-eat processed food, I offer them the same thing, like ideas, and where I get such foods, but plant-based. So when I go out and do my corporate gigs, I present to them the most simplest recipes as possible. The shorter the better. If you can whip it up in 30 minutes or less, that is what I present, with really, really short ingredient lists. When I go out in public, I do more community-oriented events. So I have this little initiative called the Foodie Food Club. It's a potluck event with only 2 rules. First rule, bring food. It must be vegan. Second rule, bring a friend. They no need to be vegan and neither do you. That way, I create an environment that is new and exciting and foreign, maybe a little bit intimidating, but because we are all equally putting in input to this event and we're doing it together, from a collectivist standpoint, it feels a lot safer. I like to mention something that my friends are doing back home. This is called Malaysia Veg Fest. It's in its 2nd year running and its 5th edition. It's basically a festival where vendors from all over the country come together and present everything plant-based. Food, junk food, products, services. And that creates a normalization of vegan culture that makes it more acceptable if people want to try it at home. And this is not to blow my own horn, but as a side quest, I do enjoy showing people what it's like to thrive as a vegan on a whole foods plant-based diet that has broken free from toxic lifestyle patterns, toxic dependency on food that does not nourish me, and to show that it is possible in Malaysia. And it is possible to be vegan and live out an optimal quality of life. I like to offer some tips. If you want to bring anything from my presentation back home, I suggest maybe to have a look at the cultural dimensions theory. It is a very fascinating topic, even for your own general digestion. I would suggest for you to take a look at the socioeconomic headlines that populate your feed, and also get down on the ground and speak to people in your circles. Get to know the goals they want to work towards, what they want, what they need, and their struggles, and then use that to inform your angle of advocacy. I'd like to conclude my talk today by saying that for the first time in 5 years, the Malaysian Vegan Society has been rebooted. And it's been a long time coming. I've just been elected president. Thank you. My vice president is here. This is Diana. Raise your hand, Diana. Hey. Any show of hands for people from the Vegan Society, Malaysian Vegan Society? Hey, Gajmani. Oh, she's speaking later. Do check her out. So we are so excited to now come from an informed standpoint to create campaigns, in the words of my Vice President Diana, that are not only loyal to values, to us as vegans, but loyal to Malaysians as well. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad that the talent on the stage tonight, today morning, is on our side of the spectrum and not on the other side, because I think this gives us a very good chance of winning. We now have about, I think, 5 minutes for Q&A. I'm going to try and see if we can do 10 and leave like 5 minutes later, but I think if we can all just sit, and I'll just stand. And we have some questions on the app already, which I'm going to ask. All right, I hope you guys are feeling pumped, because I also know why it said performer now. All right.
If you haven't guessed yet.
Awesome. All right. I think we've got a few questions on the app, and I'm just going to go by those instead of anything that we discussed. The first question that we have, thank you. All right, there you go. The first question that we have on the app is, how can an organization handle employee mental health and worker welfare when the organization does not have human resources? While the founder does not have the ability to do so, and there is no budget for hiring or HR.
Okay, that is definitely a hard moment. But what I could say is that the best way it is to create some like little rules. So for example, having a healthy work environment, like just create what are the standard working hours for people. And then just say to everyone, let's just respect our working hours. Or like just creating these basic ideas and basic, I'm trying to find a word in English, sorry. But I think basic procedures would help a long way, because then you can all share and all agree. You don't need a human resources person, of course. It is very important. There are more things that could be helpful, but this is already a good starting point.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I read once that culture is like a lot of small things we do together. Yeah. And I think if we can inculcate that in our work, that would be great. Anyone else wants to weigh in on that question?
I think Ty covered it very well.
Awesome. I'll go to the next one. So in environments that are extremely diverse, how do we handle conflicts, since conflicts do come out of diversity? And anyone, feel free to...
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
So the question is that what is to be done, or what can be done for conflicts that come out of diversity? For example, I might believe X thing and you might believe Y, but we are in a diverse work culture. So for example, I might think I don't need holidays, someone else in Europe might think they need 20 holidays, or as an example. So how do you handle diversity and conflicts that come out of diversity?
Okay, sorry. I would say the first thing is always engaging conversation in a non-violent way. I don't know if everyone is familiar with the non-violent communication approach, but it is not just agreeing to everything, but is disagreeing with a respectful manner, so people can show their ideas and their opinions, but still respecting others and listening to what other people are saying. I think this would be the best.
Thank you.
And easiest way.
Yes. Non-violent communication is the way to go, which I think we've heard a few different times on every panel, in every presentation today. This one's for you, Davina. How do you think we can move forward with activism, animal rights, or protection in collectivist societies?
I think it's really difficult. I'm sure Dave will agree, Chef Dave, who presented earlier. It's really difficult to try and show anything that seems ever so slightly progressive, because the backlash is pretty detrimental. So I think we need to present it in a way that meets them where they are with their mindset, which is, yeah, like what I had mentioned, like inculcating community-related events, getting everybody together, and not need to talk about making them feel bad, but rather creating safe spaces for everyone and making them feel heard, making them feel seen. So what we do as well back home, like I've started creating safe vegan spaces where vegans can talk about their frustrations and how difficult it is to sustain the lifestyle, and people who are curious to come and talk about why the doctor tells them to keep consuming eggs and dairy at least. So I think we have to meet them where they are, in the sense that they have their own struggles, and it has to be because we're also very family oriented and we're stuck in, everything goes back to the family. So we want to make people feel safe and included in a family-like manner. So I think the approach needs to be a little bit almost maternal. Like, it's okay. Yeah. And then once they feel empowered to start making decisions that go a little bit against the grain, I think that is what plants the seed for them to start making more individualist type decisions for themselves. And to be patient. Patience. It took forever for my mother to start embracing my vegan lifestyle, but it was so worth it. So I think it's important to be resilient and patient in collectivist societies with something as progressive as a plant-based movement.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. I think that was really
Okay,
good. Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I think I'm often reminded of my own non-veganism. I was not vegan, and I think we show the same compassion to everyone in the room because I wasn't born this way, and extend that as much as I can to my family. I'm going to ask this question to the Animals Alliance Asia team. How do we? So I think we should totally. I fully support the idea of kind of hiring local, being local, and honoring local wisdom. Two-part question. The first question is, how do we find people who are great? Because this is a growing movement, especially in Asia. And then how do we find them to have the skills, or do we train them? And I think the second question is, because we spoke about honoring local wisdom, I'm wondering how conversations are with regards to fundraising when we think about honoring local wisdom, impact that is happening at a different scale from what people are maybe used to seeing. And how can one combat that in some way?
Okay, just let me summarize the question. If I got it right, I want to make sure I got it right. So the question is, how do we find locals who can be active advocates? And how do we supplement what they need in terms of skills? Okay. And the second question is, what is the reaction of funders? Is that the
So the question is, the literal question that I have is, how do funders respond to local first wisdom? And how do you have strategies to combat the way generally fundraising happens, I guess?
So the second question is the reaction of funders to our approaches if they're not familiar with it. Yeah. Did I get it right? Yeah. Okay. So I think the first question would be better answered by Roxie, because I remember she told me stories about how she found participants for their program in Taiwan. Roxie, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. So in Taiwan, like I just introduced, we were running this fellowship for university students. And I think for many people here, you probably have worked in different countries and then try to organize events and so on. And for me, I feel like what I learned the most is that instead of standing there and then saying hey, join me, I joined them. I went to events that they held. I went to speech that they organized. I went there as a participant. And I think that got me to build trust, make friends with them. And like what Davina mentioned, they feel safe around you. And we're the same. We're just people, we just hang out. I go to your event as a participant and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this fellowship. Would you want to come and join us? And then I actually found myself 3 fellows through doing participation to their events, being a participant, being a part of the community. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? So going to the community and immersing yourself.
Really,
and trying to include everybody that way. So for the second question, which is harder because it's about funding, let's all pay attention to that question. So Shweta, I'm also curious what the funders think, because I don't have firsthand information. So I'm curious about that question too. Now, because I don't have firsthand information about that, what I can say is that I'm grateful that all these funders, they see the value of our work and they see the approaches that we have and they believe in it. They do have questions. If they do have questions, they ask and we explain and they're like, oh, so this makes sense. This is something we can support. So I think that we have the same approaches when it comes to building relations with somebody, whether they're local, whether they come from another country. We just want to understand from their point of view what's happening so that we can offer answers and bridge the gap. But if you're really curious what they're thinking, you can ask Ellie Nakajima. She's the director of Animal Alliance Asia. You should find her. She's in the event, and you can, if you ask her, I want to be there because I also want to know.
Thank you for sharing that. I do think it's a difficult space, and I think we are growing, and I think that will hopefully lead us to better places and better outcomes in the future. We're already a little over time, so I'm going to take the opportunity to say thank you so much to all the amazing panelists who presented, who provided us with amazing information, and to the audience who has sat with us, who has sat on the floor with us. Thank you for coming. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to find any of them during the conference. I'm just speaking on your behalf now.
Yes.
Please feel free to find any of them, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta, for moderating.
Yes, thank you so much.